We prepared a brief presentation that will be shared with you by Johan Lembrecht, my colleague, who is the specialist, Mr. ESF at the SFMA. Johan, please go ahead. On my part, also a very warm welcome at you on this first quarterly event of Euro filing in 2021. And this event is taking place at a very special moment, a moment when the first European single electronic format filings are being published by companies listed on European regulated markets. And this is what we all prepared for during the preceding years. And it's, in our view, only the start of an evolution towards more structured financial information. So today I would like to talk to you about the objectives, the why this European single electronic format, just a brief reminder, the challenges ahead, the fact that the structured financial information will only be a first step, and some concluding remarks. So let's briefly remind why a European single electronic format. Listed companies sometimes ask why. Why is this additional obligation necessary? Why this additional cost? Why is a PDF not enough? But when we look at the overall picture, the why becomes quickly clear. The companies themselves have been trying for a long time to integrate internal communication flows as much as possible. Everything is done electronically as much as possible to work as efficiently as possible and to avoid mistakes when copying data. Internally, computers talk to each other, so they understand each other. And then at the end of this process, there is the publication of the annual financial report on paper, in PDF. Then there is no longer smooth communication between computer systems. Computer of the financial analyst, of the investor, of the data supplier, they do not understand the computer of the listed company. After all, they only get a PDF file. So in order for the financial analyst, for the investor to be able to work efficiently with the figures provided, they must rekey the figures in their own application. And this is a fundamental rupture in communication between these different actors, between the listed company and the users of the financial information. No manager would accept such rupture inside his organization in internal communication. And this rupture in communication could no longer be justified externally either. That is why that is what ESEF is solving. So it acts, in fact, as a kind of Esperanto for information systems. The main objectives of ESEF are twofold: improve accessibility of information and improve comparability of information. This improved accessibility and comparability of information should contribute to more efficient financial markets. And academic studies show that the use of XBRL leads to greater market efficiency. ESEF enables investors to access and analyze financial information more quickly and at a lower cost. It becomes easier to follow also smaller listed companies. Before ESEF, they were at the end of the data vendor's priority list. But now that information is easily and as easily accessible as that of large companies, we could expect better coverage of smaller listed companies. The European single electronic format will also allow for more advanced tools to be used and to develop tools to be used and to be developed to process financial information. Artificial intelligence will enter into play. And the current model, we should be aware of that, the current model relies entirely on human consumption of the financial information. Whereas in the US, for example, we see that 85% of the information downloads from EDGAR, the SEC central database, also uses XBRL. 85% of the downloads are done by robots and not by humans. So efficiency is key of this. But this being said, of course, there are some challenges ahead, of course. The publication of annual financial reports, according to ESEF, is only a starting point. As challenges, what do we see? We see, first of all, the easy and cheap or free access to financial information from throughout Europe. Today, annual financial reports are made available through officially appointed mechanisms, in addition to dissemination through media and through websites. So in the European Economic Area, there are 29 officially appointed mechanisms, which also means 29 websites with their own look and feel and their own way of querying information. This is certainly not the most efficient way to search information on listed companies. And that is why the European Commission is working on the European Single Access Point, one gateway through which access to all information should be possible. That's one challenge ahead. The second one is the scope of ESEF. Today, we're talking about the annual financial report, but it's clear that one can expect other financial information to be structured as well. We think about the half-yearly financial reports, about announcements of quarterly results, announcements of annual results, etc. In our opinion, it's important that the scope of the single format would be extended to these reports and announcements to ensure that users of financial information receive all reports in the same format and can adapt their systems to consume all financial information in the same way. And that brings me to the third challenge ahead, which is the consumption of the single electronic format, the consumption of the information, of structured information. In a number of countries, not to mention the US, XBRL was introduced already a number of years ago, and specific applications were developed to consume, to use, to exploit the structured information. It's important that also in Europe, such tools are developed. And not only commercial, software is developed, but also open source software to allow small investors and academics to benefit from the single electronic format. So a huge step forward, still challenges ahead, of which the main ones in our view are accessibility, easy accessibility and cheap accessibility, free accessibility, extending the scope of the single electronic format, and developing tools to really use and exploit the data. As I said, structured financial information is only the first step. It is for sure that there are very nice perspectives ahead. On the horizon, what do we see? In the area of ESG, of environmental, social, and governance, a number of very interesting developments are taking place, and they will probably lead to more structured information ahead. In the beginning of this week, only the beginning of this week, EFRAG published its proposals to the European Commission for EU sustainability reporting standard setting. And in this report, EFRAG advocates the use of iXBRL and development of a taxonomy simultaneously with the development of sustainability standards. And in the last quarter of 2020, the Trustees IFRS Foundation launched a consultation on sustainability reporting to assess the demand for global sustainability standards. Feedback to the consultation confirmed the urgent need for global sustainability reporting standards and the support for the foundation to play a role in their development. The trustees are therefore continuing their work on the establishment of an international sustainability standards board. The IFRS Foundation has a solid experience with structured financial information as it publishes the IFRS taxonomy. And if the IFRS Foundation establishes an international sustainability standards board, it's reasonable to expect, in our view, that an appropriate taxonomy will also be established. And companies that fall within the scope of the non-financial reporting directive will soon have to publish key performance indicators, disclosing how, to what extent their activities qualify as environmentally sustainable under the taxonomy regulation. And in its report to the European Commission, ESMA supported the machine readability of non-financial statements, provided that non-financial information is harmonized and standardized. So that would be, in our view, a really very valuable perspective. Springing from our own experience, the FSMA team recently did a horizontal study of non-financial information in the annual reports of our 130 listed companies. It's a huge amount of work to really manually have to screen all annual reports, sustainability reporting being presented in different way along different KPIs. So it's really very time consuming. So here also a single electronic format would really create great added value. The other challenge, let's say, nice perspective, surely is the development of the single access point. At the beginning of this year, as you may know, the European Commission launched a consultation on the establishment of the single access point, ESAP. And the establishment of the ESAP is the first action in the Commission's new action plan on Capital Markets Union. The purpose of the single access point is to ease access to comparable and digitally usable information from companies from all over Europe. And the potential scope of the single access point is, according to the consultation, financial and sustainable investment related information made public by companies pursuant to EU legislation. So potentially this is a very wide scope. Therefore, ESMA recommended a phased approach, which should give priority to financial and non-financial information of public companies, for example, information on the Transparency Directive, under the Market Abuse Regulation, the Prospective Directive, the Takeover Bid Directive. And ESMA also underlined in its response to the European Commission that full benefit of the single access point can be reached only if information is included in the single database is comparable in terms of content and rendered in a structured, machine-readable format. Therefore, ESMA supports an increased use of structured data formats whenever appropriate. And ESMA deems that following a cost-benefit analysis, the scope of documents to be structured could be extended in a phased approach by developing further technical standards and taxonomies. And the effort necessary to develop and implement machine-readable requirements, however, is a huge effort that should really not be underestimated. This confirms, in my view, that the European single electronic format is a huge first step, a very important first step, but that many perspectives and many steps are still to be made. And my hope personally, our hope is that in a few years, maybe 3, 5, 10 years, we have reached the overall objective of comparability of not only financial information, but also key non-financial information of all listed companies, be they large or smaller companies, and that would really be a revolution within the Capital Markets Union, I personally think. So I hope this afternoon will be a very interesting one for you all, as we are now really launched, let's say, as far as ESEF is concerned, and wishing you a very interesting afternoon. Thank you very much.